Tucson. Of course, quarterback that Kenele Tate is a Heisman Trophy candidate. Why do I have such a problem? Why can't people just name people normal names like Mike?
It's Khalil Tate.
Khalil Tate. All right. Khalil Tate, certainly in the talk, if not the only talk right now, of the Heisman Trophy winners. So let's talk a little bit about Tate and Kevin Smallin. I think that's a good matchup out there in the desert.
Yeah, I think that's a really good hire by Arizona. You know, when I was stationed out there, I wish that we had Kevin Sumlin as the head coach at Arizona because I would have gone to a lot more football games because they're going to be a pretty good team. And with Khalil Tate, the way he performed last year, he's already getting some of the Heisman buzz last year, even up against Saquon Barkley. Khalil Tate was getting some Heisman talk last year. Not many people are talking about him this year. I know he's a Heisman candidate, but everybody's talking about Will Greer and Bryce Love and Jonathan Taylor up at Wisconsin. But Khalil Tate's out there in Tucson, and he's going to put up a lot of gaudy numbers this year. I don't know if Arizona's going to have the wins that you would want for to pick a winner for the Heisman Trophy, but Khalil Tate is going to make a serious run.
Let's talk a little bit about Dan Mullen, his return to Starkville, both Mississippi State and Florida, led by first-year coach Dan Mullen, will be undefeated when the Gators travel to Starkville on September 29th. The Bulldogs are a hot SEC West sleeper with a fantastic quarterback in Nick Fitzgerald. But first-year coach Joe Moorhead can't lose this one.
Well, he's probably going to lose that one, even though they have one of the more talented teams in the country because when Dan Mullen was at Mississippi State, just several top 5 recruiting classes he brought into Mississippi State. But the weird thing with Mississippi State, they're never really built to win the SEC, and a school like Florida is. And even though we're coming off the Jim McElwain era in Florida, and he's going to have Jim McElwain's players, Dan Mullen is, he's still got a pretty good quarterback in Felipe Frank. And I think Florida, it's going to be a tough SEC game, but I think Florida is probably going to get the win. So Joe Moorhead's he's a great offensive mind coming from Penn State, but his first game is not going to go his way. That's my thought anyway.
How dominant is Clemson's defense going to be this year? Clemson averaged 3.3 sacks per game last year.
They're going to be really dominant because they play a really weak schedule, and the college football they reward teams like Clemson and Alabama for playing weak schedules. That's why I'm saying Clemson and Alabama are already going to be in the 4-team playoff based off how good they are and how weak their schedules really are. So really, it's the rest of the country playing for the last 2 playoff spots, and that's why the playoff needs to expand. So. Clemson's going to have no problems this year. Maybe late when they play if they play Miami or the ACC championship game, maybe somebody might come within 3 touchdowns of them. But their defense is really solid. The schedule's terrible. It's just like Alabama, and those 2 are locked to be in the top 4. Did you mute your mic, or did that battery die too? Yo, Tom.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, got you now.
Can you hear me now? All right.
You sound like you're in a tunnel, though.
Yeah, stand by. I know. Hold on here. Okay, how's that?
Yeah, sounds a little better.
A little bit better. Okay.
A little bit
better.
I
did have to switch devices, so I had one mic muted and then the other mic muted. So I had to unmute and mute and unmute. Gotcha. So go ahead, sir. What are your final 4? You said you had them already decided. What are your final 4 teams for college football this year? We haven't even went through week 1, but we already know who our final 4 teams.
I think it's definitely going to be Clemson, Alabama. I think it's going to be it's Clemson, Alabama. I don't think Georgia gets in this year. I think it's going to be Ohio State and Auburn, even though with Urban Meyer, he's going to hear about it all year. I don't even think he can do a post-game press conference after a win because all the questions are just going to be about the the case and the investigation and nothing about football. But I think they're probably going to win every game this year. I don't think they're going to have a problem with Michigan late in the season. It'll be the last game of the season. Maybe I think Michigan's going to get better and better as the season goes on, but I still think they're going to lose to Ohio State. So my Final Four is going to be Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, and Auburn.
Well, I have a little bit of a conundrum with your Ohio State pick. I'm like I said, I'm going to stick with Penn State doing what they have to do to take care of business. I think in the Big Ten championship, it's going to be a Wisconsin and Penn State, and Penn State gets into the Final Four. I will go with Alabama, obviously, because you can't root against Alabama until it's obvious to root against Alabama. Auburn and Clemson. Again, the National College Football Championship was designed for the South. Be curious to see if we get anybody from the West or the Pac-12, like Stanford or Washington. I don't see that to be very bloody likely, so I'll go with all three of your picks, but instead of Ohio State, insert Penn State here.
Well, my problem with Penn State is just going to be so hard to replace Saquon Barkley. Even though they got Trace McSorley, he's still at quarterback. He's a Heisman Trophy candidate. They lost their offensive coordinator, Joe Moorhead, who's now the head coach of Mississippi State. We just talked about. They got a lot of stuff to replace. So when you lose just your big impact positions like that, it takes about another year to really replace that. And that's my problem with Michigan also. We didn't bring up with Terry. Jim McElwain was the head coach at Florida. He's now the offensive coordinator at Michigan. And, his brand of football is very boring down at Florida. So I don't know how it's going to work with Jim Harbaugh and everything up in Michigan when they have a power running team with a spread-style quarterback and a very boring offensive coordinator. That's all got to come together tonight in South Bend. And, Penn State's going to have the same issue. It's breaking a new offensive coordinator, bringing in new running backs. They lose all the production Saquon Barkley has, and that's the difference. That's why I believe it's going to be Ohio State over Penn State in the Big Ten.
Well, let's talk a little bit about tonight's game. A few more minutes while we've got you here. Obviously, Notre Dame is going to be missing a few beats as well. One of them, Quentin Nelson. We talked about it on Breaking Rank. Quentin Nelson here in Indianapolis, and I'm certainly very impressed and glad that he's a Colt. But that's going to leave a hole in the gap there in the O-line with Notre Dame. Do you think that the loss of Quentin Nelson and others to the NFL is going to be an Achilles heel, if you will?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a big problem. It's going to be a problem. I wouldn't say a big problem, but losing Quentin Nelson and Mike McGlinchey, this is what I was talking about whenever you were changing your microphones. It's going to be a problem. Also losing Josh Adams last to the NFL also. That's a big positions to fill, but they have Sam Mustipher up front that I think is still going to be he's going to be an NFL first-rounder offensive lineman. They have Tommy Kramer, who's also one of the top offensive linemen in the country. So they still have some pieces up front. If Dexter Williams plays, nobody really knows because he's going to dress and he's going to be there, but he may or may not be suspended. Notre Dame hasn't come out with that. If he plays at running back, he'll be the fastest player in the field. But Jafar Anderson and Tony Jones Jr. are also going to be at running back, and they're also good backs to have in a passing game. So they got pieces that they got players that can step in. The way it's been under Brian Kelly, he's a good recruiter, brings in a lot of depth. It's always been next man up at Notre Dame since he's been there, which I kind of like. He's built up the depth there. But replacing McGlinchey and Nelson, that's going to be tough to do, especially against Michigan, which is one of the best defensive lines in the country.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Michigan and their Achilles heel, their safety position. If Notre Dame can do well, and as far as blocking those safeties, I'm going to tell you one thing: that's the Achilles heel for Michigan. And I am going to make another bold prediction here that Michigan falls 0-2 before they get their first win. That is definitely going to put Jim Harbaugh on the hot seat. And I think that Notre Dame, it's going to be close. It's not going to be a lay-down win by any stretch of imagination. But I certainly think if Notre Dame can attack that safety position against Michigan State, I don't know why I said Michigan State, Michigan, they'll have a very good chance of winning. And Michigan goes 0-2, and the hot seat, Jim Harbaugh, is going to be on fire.
Yeah, if Michigan starts out 0-2, he's definitely going to be on the hot seat. If they lose tonight, I'm going to say no, because even though this game is really going to set the tone for the season, probably, but it's not going to hurt either team too bad to take a loss right here, because Michigan has the schedule to support a pretty good run. There can't be any more mistakes after a loss tonight. They're going to have to run the table. But I think both teams could still make the playoff with one loss. If it's a close enough loss, it can't be a blowout loss. It has to be a close loss tonight. That's not going to kill the season for either team. We saw Notre Dame lose by 1 to Georgia last year at home in Week 2, and they ran the table all the way up until Miami. But they were still in the playoff. They were the third-ranked team in the country, Notre Dame was, when they went into that Miami game last year. I think the same scenario is pretty much going to happen with these two teams. Whichever team has a close loss, they have the schedule and a good enough team to actually win the rest of the season. If that happens, I think a one-loss Notre Dame and a one-loss Michigan still gets in the playoff.
Well, we'll see how it all wraps up, and we'll certainly be having our eyes on the Michigan-Notre Dame game as well as the other games as well. And so certainly from a personal aspect, hope you enjoyed the game. You and Terry, I know, are going to the beauty shop here.
Yeah.
So I know you got to hop off here. Steve Wilson's down at Darlington, getting ready to walk in the track. Give us a call. We're going to talk some NASCAR. They're coming up at the bottom of the hour, Ed Kratz and Mo going to be joining us. We're talking about some preseason NFL and fantasy talk as we get ready for our fantasy football draft. And good luck to you tomorrow, sir, in the Balanced Fantasy Football Draft.
All right. Thank you, buddy.
All right. Thank you. Rick-riggin, our executive producer. And host of my name is tom-marquis, Presidente. We'll take a quick break. We'll get back. We'll be talking with Steve Wilson from Speedway Digest right here on the Balance Radio Network.
The Air National Guard is a reserve component of the United States Air Force and serves alongside active-duty Air Force members in times of a national crisis. In addition, the Air Guard serves the state and local community in a wide range of capacities. The reason people join the Air Guard is as diverse as our members and includes such reasons as a deep desire to serve their country, money for college, travel, new job skills, and the pride that goes along with belonging to the greatest military organization in the world. I joined because I felt a calling to serve my country, but I didn't want to be far away from my family, so the Indiana Air National Guard was a perfect fit for me. With over 95 different career opportunities to choose from and 100% paid college tuition to any state-funded college, why not give us a call? Call 1-800-841-3103 or visit online at goang.com to find out more. Again, that's 1-800-841-3103. The Air National Guard, guarding America, defending freedom.
It's double trouble, double the fun at African Safari Wildlife Park in Port Clinton, Ohio. See the largest antelope on Earth, the giant eland, and the ugliest creature on Earth, the African warthog. There's so much to see and do, including the Midwest's only drive-through safari. Feed the animals, see live educational shows, feel the excitement. Have your picture taken with a python or cockatoo. Feel the adventure. Shop the Symbol Lodge gift shop with items available from around the globe. Visit the snack bar or picnic facilities. Enjoy a pony or camel ride. Or cheer your favorite porker on to victory in the famous Pork Chop Down. Bring your family to see the rare and exotic animals at African Safari Wildlife Park in Port Clinton, Ohio. Just take Route 2 to the Route 53 North exit and follow the sign. Only 17 miles west of Cedar Point via Route 6. Open every day, rain or shine.
When you don't go to Geico.com, car insurance can be confusing. Like Swedish techno confusing.
Bark, bark, meow, meow. Dance with me, purple cow. Bark, bark, meow, meow. Ooh, you lovely cow.
Geico makes it easy. With 24/7 access, all you have to do is go